Welcome to HFY Codex, where science meets story and humanity always rises. Hit like, smash that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you never miss a mind-blowing tale from the frontiers of sci-fi, where humans never back down and always find a way. The storm brings a secret. Asterisk, the wind screamed across the frozen land, making it hard to see even a few feet ahead. Thick snow blasted against the research dome, shaking its metal walls like a beast trying to break in. Inside, 5 humans sat in silence, wrapped in blankets, watching the temperature drop lower and lower. Their heater was failing, and the supply ship was still 3 days away. They had landed on Iceworld 47 to study frozen gases. But now they were stuck in the middle of a deadly storm. Dr. Ellen Carter checked the sensors again and frowned. "There's a heat signal coming from under the snow," she said, her voice tight with confusion. "Could be equipment lost in the crash," replied Cole, the engineer. But he didn't sound sure. The signal was strange, small, weak, but pulsing like a heartbeat. They all looked at each other, knowing the risk of going outside. But curiosity burned hotter than fear. Wearing thick suits and helmets, Ellen and Cole stepped into the blizzard. They used scanners to find the exact location of the heat signal, just 50 meters from the dome. The snow was deep, but they dug fast, the wind pulling at their backs like icy hands. After 15 minutes of digging, Ellen's shovel hit something hard and smooth. She wiped the snow away and gasped. Beneath her glove was skin, not metal. It was a girl, lying curled in the snow, covered in a thin layer of ice. Her skin glowed faintly blue, and strange marks lined her arms and neck. She didn't wear any kind of suit, just a thin cloth like a second skin. Cole touched her neck and shouted, "She's alive, but barely," as her chest rose slowly under the ice. They didn't ask questions. They just lifted her carefully and rushed back toward the dome. Inside, the others stared as the alien girl was placed on the table. Her body was ice cold, and her skin sparkled like frost in the light. They didn't know what species she was, and they didn't care, not yet. Dr. Toma, the biologist, tried using a thermal blanket, but it wasn't enough. The girl's body didn't respond, and her glow started to fade. "We're losing her," Toma whispered. Looking around for options, "We could try direct heat," Cole suggested, thinking of old survival stories from Earth. Without waiting, Ellen removed her gloves and pressed her hands to the girl's arms. Toma joined in. Then Jocks, their medic, they surrounded the girl with warmth, holding her gently. Hours passed, and slowly her glow returned, soft but steady. Nobody spoke much as they worked. The room was quiet except for the storm outside and the faint hum of the generator. The girl's breathing grew stronger, her chest rising in slow, steady rhythm. She was still unconscious, but she looked more alive than before. Jocks noticed something strange. Her markings were changing shape, shifting like tiny lights under her skin. "She's reacting to us," he said, voice shaking with wonder. Ellen nodded, her hands still resting on the girl's cold shoulder. "She's alive because of us," she said softly. "We saved her." They didn't know who she was, where she came from, or why she was buried in the snow, but something told them she had not come here by choice. She was running from something or someone and had nearly died in the escape. The storm outside grew louder, shaking the dome like thunder. Lights flickered once, then again, but the backup power held. No one could sleep that night. They sat around the table, watching the alien girl as she slept. She looked peaceful now, her hands curled near her chest, her face calm, but none of them felt peace. Not really, not deep inside. The next morning, something changed. As light poured in through the frost-covered dome windows, the girl's eyes opened slowly. They were not like human eyes. They glowed soft silver, wide and full of confusion. She blinked, tried to speak, but no words came, just a soft sound like wind through glass. Then she looked at Ellen. And for one long moment, they simply stared at each other. Jock stepped forward slowly and held out a warm cup of liquid. The girl sniffed it, then took it. With both hands, sipping carefully, her movements were slow, graceful, but weak like a child learning to walk again. Ellen sat beside her, speaking softly. "It's okay. You're safe now. We're friends." The girl tilted her head, not understanding the words, but something in her eyes changed. Then the monitor beeped. The scanner outside picked up a second heat signal. Cole ran to the screen and froze, his face pale. "There's something else under the snow," he whispered, "and it's moving." Everyone turned to look at the girl, who now trembled and backed away from the window. Whatever was buried in the snow with her was still out there, and it was not friendly. Sharing heat. The alien girl screamed without sound, just a sharp gasp as her glowing eyes went wide with fear. Her body tensed, and she clutched the cup in her hands until it cracked from pressure. Everyone froze, staring at her, unsure what had triggered her sudden panic. Ellen followed the girl's gaze to the screen, still showing that second heat signature under the snow. The line moved slowly across the monitor, crawling like a living shadow through the storm. Jock stepped forward and placed his hand gently on the girl's arm. Trying to calm her, she turned sharply, breathing fast. And images flooded Jock's mind like flashes of memory. A dark shape, fangs and fire, broken metal. And the girl running barefoot through ice fields. He stumbled back, sweating as the girl's thoughts faded. Her fear now lived inside his own head. She was being hunted. He whispered, "Something chased her here, and it's still out." There, the team moved fast, sealing the doors and activating every defense the base had. But they had little, only motion sensors, old flare guns, and a shield dome barely working on backup power. Cole adjusted the sensors while Ellen stayed with the girl. Now shivering on the floor, her glow dimmed again, the cold starting to return to her skin, and her breath slowed once more. Without steady heat, she was slipping away again, even faster than before. "Blankets aren't enough," Ellen said sharply. "She needs real warmth, our own." No one hesitated this time. Each member of the team dropped what they were doing and moved closer. They wrapped her in layers of cloth, then pressed their bodies around her like a human cocoon. It was strange, but there was no shame, only survival and the quiet bond forming between them all. The alien girl, small and fragile, slowly stopped shaking as warmth returned to her glowing skin. Hours passed, and silence returned, broken only by the distant howl of the wind. The girl opened her eyes again, softer this time, and reached a trembling hand toward Ellen. Her fingertips brushed Ellen's temple, and for a second, the storm vanished. Ellen saw a sky of stars, bright blue oceans, tall crystal cities, and then fire, smoke, and screams. The girl pulled her hand back, her eyes wet, and lowered her head like she was sorry. Ellen placed a hand over the girl's heart and whispered, "It's okay. You're safe now." The girl tried to speak, but the words didn't form. "Lee," a soft chime escaped her lips. Dr. Toma watched carefully and said, "She's trying to talk, but doesn't know how her voice works different." Jocks handed her a tablet with pictures: food, people, water, fire. She stared at it, then tapped the fire, and then tapped Ellen's chest. "She knows we helped her," Toma said. Amazed, she's saying thank you. The girl smiled for the first time, a small thing, but enough to warm the room brighter than the heater. Outside, the second heat signal stopped moving. Now sitting still beneath the snow again, Cole frowned at the screen, unsure whether that meant danger was gone or waiting. He looked at the others and said, "Whatever that thing is, it knew where to find her, the girl." As if sensing their thoughts, reached for the tablet again. She tapped fire. Then a shadow, then herself, then the snow. She sang she brought it here. Jocks guessed it followed her all the way. The team stayed silent, unsure what to do next. None of them were trained for alien diplomacy, and yet none of them could turn away now, not after saving her life. Ellen handed the girl a blanket and smiled gently. "We need to call you something." The girl blinked, confused, but leaned forward to listen. "What about Nova?" Ellen asked. "It means a new light." The girl repeated it slowly. "Nove," and smiled again, her glow brightening with approval. And just like that, she had a name, a connection, and a place among them. Later that night, while most of the team rested, Nova remained awake. Sitting near the window, she stared into the storm, her eyes reflecting blue lightning far off in the clouds. Ellen joined her, sitting quietly beside her, letting silence do the talking. Nova leaned against her, her body warm now, her breath steady, her fear quieter. But then the monitor blinked again. The heat signal was gone. Cole checked the logs twice and looked worried. "It disappeared like it never existed," he said, voice low. Nova stood and walked slowly to the screen, placing her hand on it. Her eyes narrowed, and a small ripple of light spread from her fingertips. A new image appeared, a triangle marked in red. Deep under the snow, moving fast toward their location. Ellen took a breath and whispered, "What did we just bring into our home?" Nova looked up, and this time her glow dimmed not from cold, but from fear. The girl who didn't know herself, the walls of the shelter began to hum. A deep sound like thunder trapped in a metal drum. Nova backed away from the screen, eyes wide, skin glowing brighter than ever before. She reached for Ellen's hand, and a burst of strange symbols lit up across the monitor without anyone touching the keys. Everyone stared in shock as the screen flickered and changed to an alien map showing caves, tunnels, and something pulsing red beneath them. Cole whispered, "She's not just scared, she knows something we don't." The snow outside fell harder, wind screaming like a beast in pain. Inside, the lights flickered again, and the generator made a strange grinding sound. Nova flinched at the noise, covering her ears like a child afraid of thunder. Toma stepped forward and said gently, "Nova, can you understand us? Show us what's wrong." She turned slowly, pointed at her chest, then at the ground, and finally raised both hands like she was lifting something heavy. She was buried to hide, Ellen guessed, not just from the storm, but from them. Nova looked at Ellen and nodded, the gesture slow but sure. Her skin glowed in patterns, a soft rhythm that moved like waves under her skin. Jocks, still recovering from his earlier connection with her, stepped forward and held out the picture tablet again. Nova touched it, and an image of a burning ship appeared, a ship shaped like a silver crescent breaking in two as it crashed into ice. Tears welled in Nova's eyes as she showed them more. Creatures with claws, black as space, tearing through walls and dragging away others like her. Screams filled Jocks's mind, not from her voice, but from her memory. Nova shook with every image she showed them, until Ellen gently took her hand to stop the pain. "You don't have to show us more," Ellen whispered. "We believe you." But something still bothered Nova. She kept pointing to herself. Then, holding her head, confused and lost, Toma knelt beside her and said, "She doesn't remember who she is. Is no name, no people, no planet, just a burning ship, cold, snow, and fear." They had found her in the ice. But what had the ice taken from her mind before they did? The girl who could light up computers with her fingers didn't even know her own past. Cole sat beside the generator, fixing wires while watching Nova out of the corner of his eye. "She's not just some lost alien," he muttered. "She's something powerful and hunted." Jox replied, and she's just a child trapped in something she doesn't understand. The team couldn't decide what to fear more, the unknown enemy beneath the snow, or the mystery that Nova carried inside her. But they all agreed on one thing: they wouldn't abandon her now. Nova tried to help as best she could. She touched the broken generator and released a soft pulse of light through her palm. The machine hummed, then purred, and the heat returned to full strength. They stared in silence, amazed she had fixed what they couldn't, just by touching it. Cole said, "She's not just a survivor, she's tech we can't even explain." That night, the wind howled louder than ever before. Nova curled up near the heat source. Wrapped in blankets and surrounded by the people who had saved her, Ellen stayed beside her, reading from her old journal in a soft voice. Though she knew Nova didn't understand the words, Nova smiled faintly, her fingers tapping gently against Ellen's arm in a soft rhythm for the first time since the crash. Nova looked peaceful, but just as Ellen began to relax, the motion sensor beeped once. Cole checked the screen and saw movement. 3 red blips slowly circling the shelter. Here, he said, heart pounding. Whatever was under the snow brought friends. Everyone jumped into action, sealing the doors and readying the flares and makeshift weapons. Nova stood too, unsteady but ready, her glow rising again like a warning light. She reached toward the screen and pulsed a single symbol that flashed bright red. A strange, sharp sound filled the shelter, and the outside lights cut off completely. EMP burst. Cole realized she shut everything down. To hide us, they crouched together in darkness, listening to the crunch of footsteps outside. The snow muffled most of it, but the scraping claws were clear. Whatever was out there wasn't human. Nova sat silently, her back straight, her eyes glowing like stars behind the dark. Ellen looked at her and whispered, "You don't remember your past, but I think you were a warrior." Nova blinked slowly, unsure, but didn't disagree. Outside, the sounds faded again. As if the enemy had passed, but no one moved yet. The shelter stayed dark, quiet and tense, like a heart holding its breath as the long night dragged on. Ellen kept thinking one thought again and again. They had found a girl who didn't know who she was, but whatever she once was, the snow hadn't buried it deep enough to keep her powerless. The creatures in the ice. Blood had never touched the snow on Ice World 47 till now. When Cole opened the outer hatch at dawn, he found a trail of deep claw marks leading from the dome to the white hills beyond. Beside them, something else was left behind, a strange black fluid that steamed in the cold. Slowly melting its way into the ice, he called the others quickly, and they gathered in silence, staring at the unnatural marks. Nova stood at the back, her face pale, her glow flickering like a dying fire. Jox bent down and touched the black liquid with a gloved hand. "It's not blood," he said. "It's something else, like acid or fuel." Ellen scanned the area with her handheld tracker, but no heat. Signals were showing nearby. "They came close," she said quietly. "Watched us. Maybe tested our walls." Nova stepped forward, knelt beside the claw marks, and placed her hand flat on the snow. Her markings lit up again, bright blue, and she whispered a sound that none of them understood in her mind. Flashes returned, dark teeth, breathing smoke, chasing her through a metal corridor that shook with explosions. One of the creatures had been injured. She remembered that clearly. Its black blood sprang the walls as she escaped. Now that same blood marked the snow near their shelter. Whatever had chased her was here again. And it wasn't alone. Toma pulled Ellen aside and whispered, "What are we going to do if they come back?" "We hold the line," Ellen replied. "We keep her safe, no matter what." Nova heard them and turned her eyes toward Ellen, then Toma, then the others. She didn't speak. But her look was enough. They had chosen her, and now she chose them. Still, the fear behind her eyes never faded. Cole worked quickly, setting up flares around the outer rim of the shelter. He placed motion sensors deeper into the snow and tied tripwires to handmade spike traps. They had no weapons meant for real combat, just tools, sharp rods, and fire. Jocks poured fuel into glass bottles and made Molotovs, while Toma mixed salt and metal dust into defensive rings. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. Inside, Nova rested with her back against the main generator, her skin drawing in warmth as she recharged. Her eyes stayed open the whole time, never blinking, always watching. When Ellen approached with a hot drink, Nova gently placed her hand on Ellen's forehead again. This time, the image was clear, ship full of light, her people running, screaming, being hunted one by one, and in the center of the attack, creatures made of bone and darkness, walking through walls, feeding on energy and heat. They don't just want to kill, Jock said. After Nova let go, they want to feed. And Nova is the last of her kind, Ellen added. Or at least the last one they didn't catch. The air in the room thickened with the weight of that truth. Nova lowered her head, ashamed, but Ellen gently lifted her chin and smiled. "You're not alone now," she said. "We'll fight with you." That night, they kept watch in shifts. The wind screamed again, and the sensors blinked red twice, then went dead completely. Cole jumped up, grabbing a flare, and sprinted toward the east wall. As he reached the edge, he saw movement in the snow, huge, hunched shapes crawling low like wolves with blades. He fired the flare into the air, and for a second, the whole field lit up like fire. 3 creatures stood just beyond the flares, their skin white as bone, their mouths filled with spinning teeth. They hissed, not from pain, but from hunger. Nova stepped outside behind Cole, her glow now sharp and white like a sword. She raised both hands, and light burst from her skin like a pulse, throwing the creatures back several meters. They shrieked and scattered into the storm. Vanishing once more into the blizzard, Nova dropped to her knees, gasping, her skin steaming with heat loss. Ellen and Jocks ran to her side, lifting her gently and rushing her back inside. Her glow was dimmer now. She had used too much energy, too fast. Toma placed a scanner near her and said, "She's burned out. She needs to recover, or she won't survive the next attack." But they all knew the truth. There might not be a next time if the creatures returned with more force. Hours later, the storm grew calm, but no one relaxed. Nova slept wrapped in layers of heat, her chest rising and falling slowly. The others sat around her, building plans, drawing maps in the frost on the table, marking exits and weak spots. They were no longer scientists or explorers. They were protectors now, standing between one lost alien and whatever darkness hunted her. And in that silence, something shifted, not just in the air, but in all of them. Nova was not just a survivor anymore. She was family. The night they attacked, the lights died first, leaving only the sound of breathing in the dark. A low hum filled the air, followed by a distant grinding sound beneath the floor. Ellen reached for the emergency lamp and flicked it on, casting a weak glow across the dome. Nova stirred in her blanket, her eyes opening slowly as a single tear slid down her cheek. She had felt it before the others, the cold mines crawling closer through the ice. Cole ran to the main panel, punching buttons that no longer responded. "All systems dead," he said, voice shaking. "This wasn't power failures. Something shut us down from outside." Toma checked the air filters and oxygen supply, still working, but running on battery only. Jocks lit 3 fuel torches and handed one to each of them, their small flames flickering like candlelight in a graveyard. Nova sat up slowly and whispered something soft that made the flame in Jox's torch burn brighter. Outside, the snow had stopped falling, but the silence was worse than the storm. No wind, no movement, just stillness. Heavy and waiting. Then the sound came scraping claws on the outer wall. Slow and steady like nails on metal. The dome shivered with every step taken outside. Each one closer than the last. Nova stood without speaking. Her body glowing faint silver, eyes locked on the sealed door. "They're here," she said, her voice clearer than ever before. The team moved quickly, taking positions around the entrance and windows. Cole activated the last flare launcher, aiming it toward the sky. "If they break through, fire everything," he said. "Don't wait, don't hold back." Nova touched the center of the floor, a low light spreading. From her hand through the shelter like a soft heartbeat, Ellen crouched beside her, whispering, "What are you doing?" Nova replied, calling the fire inside. Her skin shimmered with heat. And the light in her markings began to rise again, brighter than before. Outside, a loud crash shook the shelter. A heavy blow landed just above the door. Something was trying to rip its way in. A second crash followed, then a third. And the wall began to bend inward with pressure. Jox threw the first firebomb through the side window. The glass shattering with a roar. Flames lit up a pale creature with hollow eyes and bony arms shrieked. Flailing backward into the snow, more came behind it, crawling over each other. Their eyes fixed only on one thing. Nova, Toma and Ellen fired flares. The explosions casting shadows that danced like demons. Nova stepped forward through the broken glass, ignoring the cold, the wind, and the blood. Her hands glowed hot white now, and a circle of energy bloomed around her feet. The creatures froze at the edge of that circle. Snarling but unable to step closer, she raised her arms, and a column of light exploded into the sky like a burning tower. The snow vaporized, the air burned, and the creatures screamed as if their bones were on fire. The team shielded their eyes, holding tight as the storm returned, not wind this time, but heat. When they looked again, the snow outside had turned to steam, and the ground was black glass. The creatures were gone, burned away, or driven deep beneath the planet's crust. Nova fell to her knees. Exhausted, the glow fading quickly from her skin, Jox rushed to her side, catching her just before she hit the ice. Back inside, Ellen wrapped Nova in thick blankets, cradling her like a child. "You saved us," she whispered, voice full of fear and pride. Nova didn't reply. Her body was burning up, but her energy was spent. "She used everything she had," Toma said, checking her vitals. "She needs rest, food, and time. She can't do that again soon." Outside, smoke drifted across the horizon, but nothing moved. The shelter stood, broken but standing. With its windows cracked and its roof half bent, Cole turned off the last flare launcher and dropped to the floor, heart still racing. "We made it," he said, voice hollow, barely. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that comes after survival. Heavy and hard. Ellen sat beside Nova, brushing a strand of glowing hair from her face. "We need help," Jox said. "Real help. This planet isn't safe anymore." But Nova opened her eyes weakly and shook her head. "No signal." She whispered, "If you send one, they'll come." Ellen leaned closer, asking, "Who'll come?" Nova answered with a single word, one filled with dread and sorrow. "Hunters." Escape through the ice fields. The sun never rose on Ice World 47. It only grew less dark. The sky turned pale gray, casting long shadows over the shattered snowfield. Inside the dome, silence lingered like thick smoke after fire. Nova lay still, her skin dim, her body wrapped in heat, yet the cold was slowly winning again. She had stopped glowing, and her breath came in short, broken gasps. We can't stay here, Ellen said finally, her voice firm and sharp. Shelter's too damaged, heat's fading, power's near zero. Cole added, checking the cracked generator, and Nova won't last another attack. Toma whispered, kneeling beside her fragile form. They knew. The creatures would come again, and next time, she wouldn't be strong enough to stop them. Jock stood and pointed at the old supply map, his finger landing on a blinking dot far to the west. Outpost K-12, he said, buried, abandoned. But maybe the coms still work. Cole nodded. It's a 10-mile hike through deep ice fields. Wind tunnels and cracks, and worse, Ellen added, glancing at Nova. They'll follow us wherever she goes. Still. No one argued. They all began packing gear, wrapping rations, lighting flares, and strapping on boots. Ellen gently lifted Nova onto a sled made from a broken table and old cables. The first step outside felt like walking into a different world. The snow was scorched black from the last battle, but fresh white powder already covered the scars. The air was so cold it cut skin through clothes. And the wind howled like a voice without words. Nova's eyes fluttered open as they tied her in blankets, her hands squeezing Ellen's for a second. She whispered, "They wait in tunnels," then fell back into half-sleep. They moved fast, staying low, dragging Nova across the ice with careful steps, every few hundred feet. They stopped to scan. No movement, no signals, just silence. But the silence felt wrong, like a trap waiting to snap shut after 2 hours. They crossed a frozen ridge and spotted deep cracks in the ice below. Toma scanned the cracks and shook his head. "Too wide to walk across and too thin to climb. We go around," Jock said, but Nova stirred and shook her head weakly. "No," she whispered. Through they stared at her, confused, until she touched the ice and sent a soft pulse through her fingertips. A section of the cracked surface lit up blue, and a hidden bridge revealed itself solid, ancient, and glowing faintly. "She remembers this path," Ellen said, shocked. "It's from her people." They crossed slowly, step by step, the ice groaning beneath them like something alive. Halfway across, a scream echoed from below, a shriek that shook bones and hearts alike. Shadows moved under the frozen surface, huge and fast, circling like wolves beneath glass. Nova gasped and pointed downward, her markings flashing for the first time in hours. "They see us." "Ah!" she cried. "They hunt faster now." They ran the last stretch, dragging Nova's sled faster as the ice cracked behind them. A claw burst through the surface, swiping at Jock's leg and slicing his boot open. He screamed, but kept running, blood marking the snow behind him. They reached the far edge and dove into the rocks, just as the bridge shattered behind them. The creature's head rose once from the ice, long, sharp, hollow-eyed, then sank into the depths again. Ellen pressed cloth to Jock's leg, while Cole helped Nova drink warm water. Toma checked the map again, his hand shaking. 3 more miles, he said, and only 2 flares left. Still, they moved on, through narrow valleys of frost-covered stone, the wind now silent and sharp like knives. Nova began to whisper strange words as they walked, almost like a chant, and her glow returned in flickers. Ellen looked back at her and said, "Keep going, Nova. We're close." As night fell again, a faint red light appeared on the horizon. A tower, broken but still standing. Outpost K-12, buried halfway in snow, its top sticking out like a dying tree. They reached it just before collapse, dragging Nova and Jock through a frozen hatch into darkness. Inside, dust and metal filled the air, but the walls held, and the cold was less sharp. They lit their final flare and found the comms panel cracked, old but maybe still working. Cole worked fast, pulling wires and rerouting power from emergency cells. Static hissed through the old speaker. Then a blinking green light came alive. Signal open. He said, "Someone might hear us," but before anyone could cheer, Nova sat up suddenly and shouted one word: "Wait." She reached for the COM panel and pressed her palm flat against it. Her glow pulsed, and strange symbols covered the screen, then everything froze. "She's jamming it," Cole said in shock. "Why?" Nova looked at them with tired but clear eyes. "If they hear the call," she said, "they'll find Earth next." The choice that changed everything. Nova's hand stayed pressed against the COM panel, her glow lighting up every crack in the old metal screen. No one moved. No one spoke. The signal was open. The way to safety just one button away. But her words echoed louder than any storm. If they hear the call, they'll follow it to Earth. And suddenly, rescue didn't sound safe anymore. It sounded like a trap. Cole froze, wire still in his hand, staring at the blinking green light. Jocks leaned against the wall, blood still soaking through his bandaged jaw clenched in pain. Toma looked down at Nova and asked softly, "What if we change the signal? Hide Earth's location?" Nova shook her head slowly, her voice quiet but sure. "They track energy, not words. They smell the light inside living worlds." Ellen knelt beside her, hands trembling, heart pounding harder than ever before. "So if we send this signal," she whispered, "we're leading them home." Nova looked into Ellen's eyes and didn't answer. She didn't have to. The truth was already written. Across her face, Jock stood up, wobbling, fire in his voice. "Then we stay here and die." "For what?" Nova turned to him, and her words came slow and full of sadness, not death. She said, "A delay. They follow the first light. Always the first. If I stay, I can make them chase me again." The room went still. Nova was weak, cold, nearly fading, but her glow rose brighter now, steady like a small star. Ellen grabbed her shoulders and said, "You just barely survived, and now you want to draw them again." Nova smiled faintly, a strange kind of peace in her eyes. "I remember now," she said. "I was born to shield, not run." Toma stepped back and ran his hands through his hair. "This is insane. She be hunted until there's nothing left of her." Cole looked at Nova, then at the team, then finally spoke. "What if she doesn't stay alone?" Everyone turned toward him at once, confused. "I'll stay with her," Cole said, voice steady. "She saved us more than one time, not letting her face them alone." Ellen's eyes went wide. "You don't even know what that means." "I do," Cole replied, walking to Nova's side. "It means I make her look less like a target and more like bait." Nova touched his hand, surprised, and then smiled, the biggest smile they had ever seen from her. Her markings glowed, blue and gold. No longer cold or scared, but calm. The others began packing quickly, loading food, supplies, and salvaged gear into their bags. Jocks limped toward the hatch, shaking his head but saying nothing more. Toma gave Nova a small scanner and said, "If you survive, and I know you will find us again." Ellen hugged Nova tightly, holding back tears, whispering something no one else could hear. Then she turned and walked out into the cold, leading the others toward a new extraction point. Nova and Cole stood at the top of the outpost tower. Watching them disappear into the snow, she turned to the COM panel and placed her hand on it one last time. This time, she sent out a pulse sharp, fast, bright, loud enough to shake the sky far above. Hidden ships stirred in orbit, the dark hunters waking to her call. Nova stood tall, her body glowing like a sun against the endless white. "Won't they come fast?" Cole asked, readying a flare launcher and old rifle. "Yes," Nova said softly. "They will come fast, but we will make them chase far." She reached for him, and they stood together at the edge of the tower, glowing with light and fire. Behind them, the outpost shimmered with energy, and the snow began to melt beneath their feet. She had remembered more than just her past. She had remembered power, as the sky cracked open with strange thunder and the wind rose in spirals. Nova whispered one last thing. My people called it the last light. She said, one flame, left behind to protect the next world. Cole grinned, tightening his grip on the rifle. Then let's burn bright. Together, they turned toward the horizon, where shadows moved fast through the frost, and behind them, Earth slept safe for now.